let's cross over to another story. Last week, we saw after that incident at the Langata Primary School, widespread condemnation across the board, the divide, in as far as especially of tear gassing the pupils goes. Then after that came demands to know who the land grabbers is, and then came the announcement by the Cabinet Secretary Charity Ngilu of several men, and going from the
shower, whatever.
A lot of things. Going by what happened on social media, it appeared that, a lot of Kenyans felt, who are you kidding? On this particular announcement of the alleged grabbers. Secretary, I'll start with you. Do you now have closure over that issue? Do you feel these are the people, yes, behind it, going by all that has played out in this particular story?
Or do you know who the grabber is as the SG of TNA?
TNA is a political party that is in power. That is the custodian of the people's rights and the people's property. It has no business at all grabbing or participating in grabbing. Anyway, that said, let me put it this way. The president has come forward to castigate the action in this thing. The tear gassing of these pupils was simply it was simply out of place. For those of us who were here a little earlier, it could remind you of nothing but the Sharpeville massacre, the apartheid era. And it was so unfortunate that a country that has invested so heavily in multi-party democracy, that so heavily counts itself as amongst the community of nations that want to aspire to protect human rights, would engage in. Then came the issue of who is the real owners of this land. And at some point, the Minister for Land or the CS came up and said, I'll give the names. And she gave the names. And Kenyans did not believe the names that she gave as the owners of that particular parcel of land. I personally do not believe it. But let me tell you, Sophie.
Okay, just to make it clear, you do not believe those are the land grabbers?
I personally did not believe that the things would have had whatever was being said were the owners of the land. But I have an injunction to it, that land in our current situation in this country is fairly a fluid thing. I would own it today, sell it to you tomorrow, sell it to the other person, so that sometimes I would even say that the person we suspect to have owned this land is Mr. Weda. But Kumbe, he had sold it. So it is possible that a grabber had sold it to Singh, or Singh had sold it to a grabber who is trying to protect it.
All right.
In all this chain, both the seller and the buyer and even the third party all would be caught in the mix. So that short of investigation, it is sometimes difficult to know who to blame at that particular time. Is it the Singh who bought the land? Is it the original grabber? Is it the person who wanted to acquire it? So in the absence of comprehensive investigations, I'm reluctant to throw the first stone. I'm reluctant to castigate or to say that the Minister of Land did not do a good job.
All right, so just also to clarify, you say, like many others, that you're not convinced these are the people behind the land grab. So then are you saying the Cabinet Secretary is misleading Kenyans? And if so, why do you think she's doing that?
Thank you so much. What I'm saying is that the CS ought to have said that as at this date that we extracted our records from the Attorney Generals, or from the ministry, these are the people who are registered to have owned the land. But remember what I've stated first. Land is fairly fluid in terms of ownership in this country. And here we have a land that we are told was grabbed from the primary school. Is it still with the first grabbers? Is it with the second? Is it probably someone trying to buy it, trying to protect it, or the person who currently owns it? And thirdly, the fact that there's a name to it may not mean that that person is the grabber. I could easily sell you a land that I grabbed, and you having done a search, you believe it was a clean parcel of land. That is why I'm saying, let there be thorough investigations and may the culprits face the law.
Do you share views, finally, before I also hear your views, with those on social media? We saw some of those memes. Fingers appeared to be pointing at a particular direction in as far as that land is concerned. Is your finger as well pointed to that direction? I
am not pointing at that direction, and I'm not absolving anybody in the absence of clear, thorough investigations that would lead us to that direction.
Okay.
And if it leads us there, then I'll say, let the law take its course.
All right. Hassan Omar, what are your thoughts on this one?
You know, I must say that when you apply law and the standards of human rights, they must be equitable. And I totally sometimes feel that I want to castigate the police officer who threw the tear gas canister. But I can tell you for a fact, that's what changed the course of events. That event will not have been heard of. It will have subsided within the hour, and everybody will have gone home and forgotten about that land grab and left it to Boniface Mwangi and a couple of others.
The tear gas saved the day?
And it's Heaton. I think that sense of irresponsibility saves the day. And I think that's why sometimes we need to celebrate our youth or the students who did what they did, and talk about transgressions of by any state officer, be it Keteri, be it any other state officer, including the police officer. But you see, when you allow a scheme or a pattern of violations, I remember the discussion we had, because I also represent Mombasa County, and what I remember, even in the boardrooms of the court coalition, that there was a time the police invaded a mosque. There were children in that mosque who were tear gassed, who were beaten, who were arrested, who were held almost incommunicado. It took the intervention of the court 7-8 days later and said, for heaven's sake, these are minors. We do not treat minors in this way some of them as young as 9 years old, 11 years old, in this country of ours. But you see, the police had gotten the courage that it is common practice, it is normal. And therefore, when somebody pokes the eye of Sophia Wanuna, we must talk with as much audacity, no matter the allegations. And so that before it comes to you, Onyango or Ambrose, because that is the way you ensure even application of the law. And I think we must, give our children in this country, we have already disenfranchised them. They live in very, in poverty-stricken backgrounds. At least the least we need to give them is dignity, give them the respect. And I personally want to believe that there is a political hand in this whole land saga, because the nature in which it has been treated, you could tell their forces, the mannerisms, Sophia. If it was one mere mortal, Hassan Omar, or maybe the state was looking for all these years, or for instance, Ambrose Sweda, where you don't lose much, we will forget about him in the next 1 week. By now, the names will have been out, a thorough investigation will have been on the table, and I'm finding it so bothersome by the duo of Ngilu and Suzuri going to every theater of conflict and pretending that they can offer solutions. You say, oh, this land belongs to the school, so what? Where were you all this time, as the president asked? And where was the president himself in the first place, as others have asked too? So this kind of a situation is really distasteful. And I hope that the Commission can assert its mandate a lot more boldly in the coming years or days.
All right. Whether do you read a cover-up as well in this whole incident? Senator says there's a sense of a very powerful person perhaps being behind all of this.
I think that land is very valuable for a playground. Really, it used to be good for playground, but in the modern times, it should have been zoned now into high-value commercial property. Then we pay for it. Then we relocate the school, or at least the playground. But
that's extreme.
Take the kids to play elsewhere and go to school there.
We can even, in fact, the value of that land, we can provide them with buses that can even take them to Uhuru Park regularly when they want. What I'm saying is this.
I hope you're joking. I hope you are.
You know how land is excised or cut off? You apply. You write a letter or you fill a form, then it goes there, then some people have to physically survey and cut it off, hive it off. That is done at the land office. That is purely internal, and you don't need any power to find out who applied and who excised it off and on whose authority. So it is not a question of who owns the land. The land, otherwise, I would say, put it in the name of my cousin or put it in some phantom names for the sake. But if you look at the gerrymandering about it, the minister threatening to leave, His Excellency also being kept in the dark on this, it must be either somebody dangerous or very powerful. One of the two.
Somebody dangerous or very powerful, or both.
Yeah.
But I think I must conclude by saying,
yes.
I hear people saying it was very wrong for those children to do that. I think what the children did, it was their playground. They had to come out. They had to pay the price. I saw Jaramogi there. I saw Kenyatta there. I saw all the freedom fighters, and it means the future is well secured.
Okay.
But just one issue. If we are to go with that rationale, by whether that the price of that land has appreciated so much so that it might no longer be viable to have it as a playground, we have what we call city planning. Then that's the same kind of idea that will follow, that you need to do away with Uhuru Park. Then the next idea will say that the State House sits on a very big piece of land, so let's cut up a bit of it. The next thing you will say, because that every other thing, look at how other countries have been organized. Let's say go to the US. You actually see that their seats of power are organized in some kind of a cross. You find the Supreme Court here, you find the Capitol there, you find, and that, the White House in some place. These are part of grand schemes of countries that then which needs to be adhered to 100, 200 years down the line. If we need to get a new cities, you see the satellite city that has grown out of Upper Hill. That's where now you try to grow, other areas as land becomes scarce and more valuable. So you start to reach out outwardly rather than try to encroach on school space and stuff.